The chains around Lara's wrists were too tight, and every time she moved, they scraped her skin. She had stopped crying days ago. Tears had dried on her cheeks, salt left behind like faded memories. The auction hall was filled with noise creatures, from dozens of species yelling bids, laughing, drinking. But Lyra couldn't focus on them. Her feet hurt, her back hurt. Her heart hurt the most. She was led onto the platform like livestock, number 027 glowing above her head in cruel red letters. No one even asked her name. She was just a product now. Her skin, once a soft shimmer of violet, was now pale and bruised. Her white hair hung like tangled threads, dirty and dull. She had not eaten in 2 days. One of the slavers pushed her forward roughly, and she stumbled. The crowd laughed. Someone in the back shouted, "She won't last long." A few nights at best. Lyra closed her eyes. She wished she were dead already. Maybe that would be easier. Maybe death wouldn't hurt. This much dark in the middle of the chaos, a man stood silently in the corner, human, taller than most in the crowd. His dark coat was dusty from travel, his boots scuffed. His name was Elias Ward, and he wasn't supposed to be here for this. He was a former fleet officer, now a cargo hauler running shady routes between systems. Today, he had come looking for information rumors about missing refugees, stolen tech, underground labs. But when he saw her thin, shaking, and still trying to stand with dignity, something stopped him. He couldn't look away. There was something in her eyes. They weren't begging. They weren't angry. They were waiting. Like she still had hope someone might choose her for something better. Starting bid, 5,000 credits, the auctioneer growled. She's frail, but exotic. Rare breed. A few hands went up. A reptilian male whistled. I'll take her for breeding. Fragile ones scream nice. The crowd laughed again. Elias didn't. His hand went up slowly. 10,000, he said. The room fell silent for a second. The auctioneer raised an eyebrow. We got a real buyer here, folks. Another bidder tried to challenge, but Elias doubled the price without blinking. The slaver grinned. Sold. To the human with cold eyes. The transaction happened fast. Papers, biometrics, a transfer code. Lyra watched through blurry vision, not understanding what was happening. She was led off the platform toward the man who had bought her. Her legs barely moved. She stumbled again. When Elias reached for her arm, she flinched hard and backed. Away, expecting pain. But he didn't hit her. He didn't even grip her tightly. He paused and spoke gently. It's okay. You're coming with me now. They walked through the dirty corridors of the trade station. Elias didn't say much. Lyra didn't ask questions. She just followed because she had no strength to run. Inside his ship, the air smelled like oil and metal. But it was clean, warm. She was led to a small room, not a cage, but she still backed into the farthest corner and sat with her knees to her chest. Elias brought her water, real water, not the recycled sludge she was used to. She looked at it and at him. It's clean, he said. You can drink. She did, hands shaking. Then he placed a food bar on the floor and left without a word. She didn't sleep that night. She didn't trust the silence. Hours passed, or maybe a whole day. Elias came again, this time with a blanket. He didn't try to talk, just left it near her and sat on the floor across the room. Not close. Not threatening. You don't have to say anything, he said, voice low. But I'll keep you safe, I promise. She didn't believe him. But for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel the cold creeping into her bones. She stared at him through the darkness. Why? She whispered. He looked confused. Why did you buy me? She asked. Her voice was rough, dry. Almost. Broken. Elias shrugged. I don't know. Maybe I was tired of watching monsters win. Silence returned. She pulled the blanket tighter. Later, as the engines hummed and stars blurred outside the small window, Lyra whispered something into the darkness. Not loud, not for him. Maybe for herself. Just pretend I matter. For a little while. She didn't know if he heard her, but she heard herself. And it made her cry again, for the first time in too long. Quiet tears. Real tears. She had been sold like meat, tossed like trash. But now, in this strange ship with a quiet man who hadn't. Touched her once, she felt something strange blooming inside her chest. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it was a beginning. A single fragile thread of hope, and that thread refused to snap. Not tonight. Lyra woke to the sound of the ship's engines humming like a distant storm. The room was dim, but warmer than she expected. She wasn't in a cage. There were no bars, no sharp lights, no loud voices yelling at her to move. She was wrapped in a blanket, curled in the corner of a small passenger room. The walls were metal, scratched and old, but they felt safer than anything she had known in weeks. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The auction, the human, the whisper she had spoken into the dark. She pulled the blanket tighter and scanned the room. The door was closed, but not locked. That made her panic. More than a locked one. Why wasn't she being kept in a cage? Was this some kind of test? Was the human trying to make her let her guard down before using her? Her body tensed, ready to run even though she had nowhere to go. The ship was in space. There was no escape dot suddenly. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Elias stood there, holding a tray. Food. Real food this time. A small bowl of soup, bread, and a fruit she didn't recognize. He didn't come in. He didn't speak. He just placed the tray on a small table by the wall and backed away slowly, showing her his empty hands. You don't have to eat it if you don't want to, he said. His voice was calm, low, and strange, like someone who wasn't used to talking too much. But it's yours. She didn't move. She just stared. Elias gave a small nod and turned to leave. But before the door closed, she whispered, Why haven't you hurt me yet? Elias froze for a moment, his back still facing her. Then he said, Because I'm not like them. And then he was gone. Lyra stared at the food. Her stomach growled, but she waited. Minutes passed, maybe an hour. Only when she was sure he wasn't coming back did she move forward, slowly crawling. Like a cornered animal, the soup was warm. It tasted plain but safe. She ate every bite, her hands shaking. Tears stung her eyes. She didn't even know why. Later, she sat against the wall, knees pulled to her chest. She stared at the door, waiting, listening, but the human didn't return that night. The next day, he came again, this time with a change of clothes and a towel. There's a washroom on the left, he said. Hot water works. No cameras. You're safe. She didn't believe him, but she took the towel anyway. Days passed like this. Quiet visits. No questions. No threats. Elias only spoke when needed. He never touched her. He never demanded anything. Slowly, Lyra began to notice things. The human always knocked before entering. He always kept his voice low. And sometimes he looked at her like she was something more than a number. One night, she stood in the hallway, unsure if she was allowed to leave her room. She saw him sitting in the cockpit, watching the stars through a wide glass window. He heard her footsteps, but didn't turn. Can't sleep? He asked, she didn't reply. Instead, she stepped closer and sat on the floor beside the doorframe. Not too close, just enough. "Where are we going?" she asked softly. Elias leaned back in his seat. "Somewhere quiet. A place where they won't find you." "You're hiding me?" He nodded. "You're not safe out there. Not with a price on your head." She blinked. "I have a price?" "You're rare. Valuable. Monsters love rare things." Lyra looked down at her hands. She had once been proud of her people, of her soft skin and glowing eyes. Now it felt like a curse. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Elias was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Because I've seen what they do to the weak. I couldn't stop them before, but I can save at least one now." The words sat in the air like a fragile crystal. Lyra stared at the stars, thinking about her family, her people, her home, all gone. That night, she dreamed of a cage again. But this time, it was open, and she was holding the key. She woke with tears on her cheeks and a heavy feeling in her chest. She stood, wrapped the blanket around her, and stepped out of the room. The hallway was quiet. Lights dim. She walked to the cockpit. Elias was there, half asleep in his chair. She sat beside him. He opened one eye, surprised. "I had a nightmare," she whispered. Her voice was trembling. "I saw them again, laughing, bidding, calling me meat." Elias looked at her, his expression softening. He didn't move toward her, didn't try to hug her, but his presence was steady, grounded. She leaned her head gently against his arm. "I was sold as livestock," she whispered, voice shaking. "But you hold me like I matter." Elias didn't answer. He didn't need to. He just stayed, still, letting her lean on him because the stars kept passing by. But then the ship's console lit up red, a silent alarm. A ship was tracking them, and it wasn't friendly. Asterisk. The alarm's soft red glow spread across the cockpit like blood in water. Elias's hand moved fast, pressing buttons and silencing the noise, but the warning stayed. A ship was nearby. Too close. Lyra flinched when the lights shifted, her body curling up again out of habit. She had learned long ago that red lights meant pain. But Elias didn't shout. He didn't touch her. He just leaned forward, jaw tight, eyes locked on the scanner. "They found us," he muttered under his breath. Lyra sat up straighter. "Who? Slavers? Or bounty hunters? Maybe both." Her heart pounded. She had hoped just for a moment that maybe the danger was over, that maybe this ship was different. But now her chest felt tight, like the cage had followed her into space. "I can leave," she said quickly. "I'll run. They want me, not you." Elias turned to her, voice sharp. "No, you're not going anywhere. I didn't take you out of hell just to let it chase you back in." She looked down. She didn't understand him. Every instinct screamed that he was lying, that no one could be this kind without a price. But something in his eyes, like tired fire, kept pulling her back from the edge. Elias set a new course. "I know a place. Dead moon. No life, no signal. We hide, wait it out. It's better than fighting them in open space." The caliber jumped again, stars bending around them like stretched glass. Lyra sat in silence as the hum of the ship filled the space between them. She wanted to ask questions. She wanted to know why he cared. But the fear was louder than her voice. When they reached the moon, it was cold and gray, barely more than a rock, but it had caves and shadows, and most importantly, silence. Elias guided the ship into a narrow crevice between sharp stone cliffs. It was hidden from all angles. Inside the ship, Lyra paced. Her thoughts spun like broken glass. She remembered her cage, her people, the screams, her sister's hand slipping. Away in the dark, she felt like her mind was cracking again. When Elias came to check on her, She was sitting on the floor, rocking gently. "Hey," he said softly. "It's okay. We're safe for now." Lyra looked up at him. "Why are you doing this?" she asked for the second time. "Why me?" Elias hesitated. Then he sat beside her, not touching, just close. "Because once, a long time ago, someone saved me when they didn't have to. I didn't understand it then, but now I do." Lyra watched him carefully. "Were you a slave too?" "No, but I was lost. And someone found me." She looked down. "I don't know how to be found." Elias gave a small smile. "That's okay. I know how to wait." They sat there, quiet, for a long time. The moon outside was silent, the stars above blinking like forgotten gods. Inside the ship, warmth began to creep in, not just in the air, but between them. Later that night, Lyra did something she never thought she would. She hummed. Just a few notes. A soft melody from her childhood. It was almost a whisper, like a ghost from her past. Elias froze, listening. "That song," he said, "it's beautiful." "It's a Mirani lullaby," she said quietly. "My mother used to sing it." Before they came, Elias didn't ask who they were. He didn't need to. The next morning, something changed. Lyra woke to the sound of the ship's systems humming differently. A quiet ping, a beacon. Elias ran to the console, his heart sinking. "They have a signal on us again." "How?" Then he turned to Lyra. "Do you have a tracker?" Her eyes widened. "No, I don't think so. They never said anything. I don't know." Elias scanned her with a handheld device. A faint blinking. Light appeared on her upper back, hidden under her skin. A small implant buried deep, cold, and cruel. "They used you as bait," he muttered. "They probably expected me to run. They're tracking you even now." Lyra's breath caught in her throat. "I didn't know, I swear. I didn't know." "I believe you," he said, but it didn't matter anymore. Outside the cave, ships had landed. Lyra watched the scanners flash red again. Her hands trembled. "I should have stayed in the cage," she whispered. "You're going to die because of me." Elias looked at her with fire in his eyes. "No, I didn't pull you out to lose you now." He stood, grabbing his blaster and slinging a pack over his shoulder. "We're not going back. Not alive." She stared at him. "Where will we go?" He looked back and said one word. "Through." Then the lights flickered, the outer hull shook, and Lyra screamed because someone was breaking in. Asterisk. The ship groaned as metal buckled under pressure. The slavers were cutting through the hull. Sparks sprayed like falling stars outside the cockpit. Window. Lyra pressed herself into a corner, her heart hammering. Every sound reminded her of cages, of screaming, of collars yanked tight around her throat. Elias stood in front of the door with his blaster drawn, his body tense but calm. He turned to her once. "You stay here. Don't open this door, no matter what you hear." She shook her head. "You'll die out there." "I'd rather die. Free than live as a coward." He gave her the smallest smile. "And I'm not letting them take you again." Before she could argue, the emergency lights flickered. The door hissed open, and Elias slipped through like a shadow. Lyra pressed her hands over her mouth to keep from sobbing. She didn't want to be weak, but the fear in her chest felt like ice. She heard shouting outside, then a sharp blast, then silence. Elias moved quickly through the rocky cave around the caliber. 3 slaver scouts were advancing, weapons drawn. He ducked behind a ledge and fired, hitting one in the leg. Another turned toward him, but Elias was faster 2 shots, clean and fast. But the 3rd scout wasn't alone. A bigger ship had landed on the far side of the ridge. Reinforcements were coming. Back inside, Lyra looked around the room. She had to do something. She found Elias's portable scanner, the one he used to detect the implant in her back. She took a shaky breath and ran the scanner over herself again. The signal was strong. She grabbed a small utility knife from the emergency kit. She hesitated. She had no training, no way of knowing how deep the implant was. But she couldn't let them use her as bait again. Gritting her teeth, she pressed the knife against her back and cried out softly as pain spread across her shoulder. Her vision blurred. Blood ran down her side, but then finally she felt it. The tiny, cold chip. She dug it out and smashed it beneath her foot. Outside, Elias saw the signal on his wrist pad vanish. She did it. He smiled for half a second, then a flash grenade exploded near him, throwing him back against a rock wall. His vision spun. Boots crunched toward him. A shadowy figure stepped forward, tall, armored, face hidden by a metal mask. "Well, well, well," the slaver said in a deep voice. "Didn't think a human would give us this much trouble." Elias tried to stand, but his leg throbbed with pain. The slaver kicked his weapon away and stepped closer. "You bought her cheap. We'll give you double to hand her back." "She's not for sale," Elias spat, blood on his lips. "Then you'll both die." Just as the slaver raised his weapon, a high-pitched shriek echoed through the cave. The sound was eerie, beautiful, and alien. The slaver turned just in time to see Lyra wounded, limping but standing tall at the edge of the rocks. Her hands were glowing faintly, her eyes bright silver, now locked onto the masked figure. "That girl," the slaver whispered. "She's not livestock. She's—" Elias pulled a hidden blade from his boot and stabbed upward, driving it into the slaver's thigh. The man roared, and Elias grabbed his blaster, rolling to the side and firing once clean through the slaver's helmet. Silence. The man fell. Lyra dropped to her knees. Elias limped to her side, catching her before. She hit the stone. Her blood soaked into his shirt. "What did you do?" he asked, voice shaking. "I took it out," she whispered. "The tracker. I won't be a trap anymore." "You cut yourself?" "I'm tired of being hunted." Elias lifted her gently. "We need to get out of here." He carried her back to the ship, fighting the pain in his leg and the weight of her trembling form. Inside the Caliber, he set her on the bed, sealing the door behind them. As he stitched her wound, she watched him closely. "You saved me. So did you," he replied. "You made it harder for them to find us. You fought." Lyra touched his hand. "They knew something." "The slaver, he said I wasn't livestock." Elias nodded slowly. "He knew what you are, or who you are." She looked away. "I'm no one." "No," he said, holding her gaze. "You're someone. Someone they're afraid of." Lyra whispered, almost too soft to hear. "They called me Princess. Long ago, before they burned my world." Elias froze. She looked at him, eyes full of pain and something deeper truth. "My name is Lyra Veari. I'm the last living heir of the Mirani line." The ship rocked slightly as the engines powered up. And outside the cave, in orbit above the dead moon, 3 more slaver ships arrived, tracking the last royal bloodline left in the galaxy. Asterisk, asterisk. The Caliber trembled as it lifted off the surface of the dead moon. Dust blew across the jagged rocks below, swirling like ash as the engines roared to life. Inside the cockpit, Elias gripped the controls, blood still drying on his leg wound. Beside him, Lyra sat strapped in, her skin pale and clammy, one hand pressed over the fresh bandages on her shoulder. She stared out the window at the stars, her expression blank. She had just spoken a name that hadn't left her lips in years. Lyra. Veari, last of the Mirani royal bloodline. The name echoed in Elias's mind like a drumbeat. He knew of the Mirani. Everyone in the old war circles did. a peaceful ancient race gifted in psionics, artists of light and harmony. But when they refused to join the trade syndicate, their planet was bombed into silence. No survivors. No heirs. Or so they said. Now. One sat beside him, alive. "I don't want a throne," she whispered suddenly, breaking the silence. "I just wanted to be safe, to sing, to live without cages." Elias didn't answer right away. He couldn't. The weight of her truth was heavy, and it made everything make sense. The price on her head, the tracker, the way the slavers looked at her like more than just meat. She wasn't just rare, she was dangerous. A symbol, a spark that could light a fire across the stars. "We need to know what they know about you," Elias said finally, "and why they're still hunting you after all these years." "There might be one place," Lyra said quietly, not looking at him. "A memory vault, hidden by my mother before the bombing. I was told never to go there unless I had no one left. It might have answers." Elias nodded. "Where is it?" "Inside. An asteroid, far out past the border systems. Mirani Tech cloaked it before the war. It'll only open to my voice." He adjusted the ship's course immediately. The journey took days. During that time, something between them shifted again. Not out of survival this time, but something gentler. At night, Elias showed Lyra the stars through the old navigation dome. She told him the names her people gave them, soft, musical words that made him feel like a child again. Sometimes she hummed softly. He didn't know if it was for comfort or memory, but it always made the cold metal ship feel warmer. Elias asked once, "What was your world like?" Lyra smiled sadly. "It smelled like sun-warmed air and sweet trees. Music floated in the streets, not from machines, but from people. We didn't build weapons. We built gardens that glowed at night." He stared at her. "And they destroyed all that?" She nodded. "They said we were weak, so they made us disappear. When the asteroid finally came into view, it looked like a dead rock. But Lyra's voice triggered a pulse across its surface, soft. Silver light blooming like veins through stone. A hatch opened. Elias guided the caliber inside, landing in a dark chamber filled with silence. They stepped out into a forgotten vault. The walls lit slowly, revealing murals, floating images, memories captured in Mirene light crystal. Lyra walked between them. Like a ghost among tombstones, she touched a panel. A soft, motherly voice filled the room. "If you are hearing this, my daughter, then I am gone, and so is our world." Lyra stopped breathing. Elias stood beside her, silent. The recording continued. "You are the last. The council betrayed us, sold us to the trade syndicate in exchange for power. Our people trusted peace, and that was our end. But you were born with fire. You must run, survive, and when the time is right, tell the truth. Let the stars remember who we were." Tears streamed down Lyra's face as the vault showed images, ships bombing cities, slavers rounding up survivors, the council standing beside human mercenaries. Elias frowned. "Wait, humans helped them?" "Not Earthborn," Lyra said bitterly. "Outworlders, exiles, mercs who traded their honor for money." Then the image changed. Lyra as a child, holding a glowing orb, singing softly. The room shimmered with sound, music that moved like a storm and a lullaby combined. Elias had never heard anything like it. It filled the chamber with light. For a moment, it felt like the galaxy itself had stopped to listen. She was born with the song of awakening. The voice of her mother continued. "If she sings before the right ears, they will remember. They will rise." Lyra stepped back. "I don't want to rise. I don't want to be a queen. I just want to be free." Elias gently took her hand. "Maybe that's why you should be the one who leads." But then the lights inside the vault began to flicker red. A warning flashed across the display in ancient Mirani script. Lyra's eyes widened. "They found us again," she whispered. Outside, the asteroid trembled. A syndicate cruiser had arrived, tracking the energy pulse of the vault. And they were not alone. Behind them, 2 more ships dot, but the biggest shock came when one of them hailed the caliber with a voice Elias never expected to hear. "This is Commander Jace Varan of the Earth Colonial Guard. You are harboring a known fugitive. Power down and surrender the girl, or be destroyed." Asterisk. The message repeated again across the caliber's comms, sharp and clear like a blade to the heart. "This is Commander Jace Varan of the Earth Colonial Guard. You are harboring a known fugitive. Power down and surrender the girl, or be destroyed." Elias's hands hovered over the controls, frozen. Lyra sat beside him, her skin pale, her breath shallow. She had just learned the truth about her people's betrayal, and now her last place of safety had been discovered. The humans were supposed to be neutral, but this wasn't neutrality. This was a threat. Why would Earth be after you? Elias muttered. "They're not," Lyra whispered. "Not all of Earth, anyway." Jace Varan, that name. He was in the Trade Syndicate's files, a war contractor. He defected from Earth decades ago. He's not guarding peace. He's guarding secrets. Elias narrowed his eyes. "Then it's time we break them." The Myrni vault trembled again as the Syndicate cruiser charged weapons. Red lights pulsed along the walls like a heartbeat counting down. "There's a transmitter here," Lyra said, struggling to her feet. "My mother built it to store memories, but it can also broadcast them across the system." "To who?" Elias asked. "To everyone." Elias hesitated. "If we do that, they'll trace it. We'll be a target. A big one." "They already want me dead," Lyra whispered. "Let's give them a reason to be afraid." She moved to the crystal console at the vault's center. Her fingers trembled as she touched the songstone. It lit with a hum her mother's voice, her people's songs, the proof of the genocide. All of it. "Once I sing," Lyra said softly, "there's no going back." Elias stood beside her, hand gently touching her shoulder. "Then sing, and let the galaxy see who you are." She nodded, tears in her eyes. Her lips parted, and sound emerged soft at first, like a single breath through wind chimes, but then it grew. A melody that shimmered with sorrow, memory, and fire. The vault responded, glowing brighter with each note. Holograms flickered to life images of Myrni cities burning, the trade syndicate's deals, the human mercenaries helping them, the face of Jace Varan among them dot above the asteroid. The cruiser picked up the transmission. Inside its control deck, Varan watched in horror as the truth exploded across all channels. The faces of his crimes, the children, the light songs, the bombings all played on every screen. Ships in orbit began receiving the signal. Civilian, freighters, rebel vessels, even Earth's actual peacekeepers. Everywhere, the truth was spreading dot in the vault. Lyra's voice reached its peak. The melody twisted into something fierce, powerful. Her eyes glowed, her body surrounded by light. The song of awakening was not just a memory, it was a call. And across the stars, those who had once known the Myrni remembered. Then the signal. Cut dot the energy drain overloaded the vault. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The console dimmed. "We have to go," Elias said. They ran through the tunnel back to the caliber, the hull vibrating from incoming fire. Elias launched the ship into the dark, dodging blasts from the cruiser above. Lyra clutched the side of the console, watching the vault vanish behind them in a blaze of collapsing stone. "Hold on," Elias muttered. "They're going to come for us now harder than ever." But then something unexpected happened as they emerged from the asteroid field. 2 unknown ships appeared on the scanners, then 5, then 10. Rebel vessels, civilian fleets, refugees from the war. They formed a protective wall around the Fies. Caliber, aiming their weapons at the Syndicate cruiser. A message came through. "This is the Free Horizon Fleet. We received your signal. The girl is under our protection now." Elias stared, stunned. Lyra's hand slowly rose to her mouth. "They heard me," she whispered. "They remembered." Commander Varin barked threats across the channel, but no one listened. His cruiser, outnumbered and surrounded, retreated into deep space, chased by rebel fighters. Inside the Caliber, Elias powered down the weapons. For the first time in days, silence didn't feel dangerous. It felt peaceful. Lyra sank into the co-pilot's chair, her body trembling. "I didn't think anyone would come." "They didn't come for a queen," Elias said softly. "They came for a voice that mattered." She turned to him. "I was sold as livestock. I was treated like a thing. But you held me like I was real." "You are real," he said. "You always were." They didn't speak for a while. The stars stretched before them, endless and open. "Where do we go now?" she asked. "Anywhere." Elias said, "You're not running anymore. You're leading." She looked out the window at the fleet flying with them ships, full of people who had lost everything but still followed hope. She took Elias's hand. Together, they flew toward the unknown. Not as fugitives, but as the spark of something new. And far behind them, where the Mirani vault once stood, a single note echoed across the void, soft and eternal. A song of belonging. *The end.